Welcome. We are live, or you are live, with the pastor and the professor. I turned my computer off. So welcome. We are live. If you have been following us this week, in particular today, you know this is a nerve-wracking day for me. And this is me being brave and vulnerable. Last week I set the intention to practice vulnerability and being brave, Doug, and this is me doing just that.
And you certainly are, and you certainly will.
Yeah. So the show has kind of taken on a new dimension today. As you know, if you were following us on Facebook or Twitter or just know us personally, I had planned on sharing my story of my heart attack, which ultimately was the story of my death and being sent back. And I was not prepared for how I was going to respond to doing that. So today has been a very emotional day. It's already started. It's been a really emotional day because it brought back a lot of things that I'm still dealing with that maybe I've hit under the surface. And so, we had planned on getting into a little bit of Doug's book, one of the first foundational identities of the church in the family. And I don't know if we'll get to that tonight. We will probably talk a little bit about the church, and I'm gonna have a little background noise. I'm gonna close this down and see if that helps. I have some kind of background noise going, but so we're gonna get into a little bit of the identity part. There's a chapter on identity, and I'm sure Doug will be touching on that. So I didn't know whether to go live with my story or record it. Ultimately, I ended up recording it. Did it in one take, and I wasn't prepared for the outpouring of emotion and reliving some of that. And I called Doug right away afterwards and was kind of a mess and still a mess. So it's kind of where we're at. So what we're going to do is we're going to share my story. You know me, it's going to be a little long. But it's, the first part was hard to get through, kind of telling what happened physically and the circumstances surrounding the heart attack and everything that involves. And then the last part of it was even harder. And we're going to have Doug and I both on the screen while you're watching this, so you can kind of see our reaction to it. Doug has not seen this. He knows the story. There may be things in the story that he doesn't know. I'm not sure exactly what I told him, what I didn't tell him. But we'll kind of go from there. So, Doug, anything you want to add before we, just kind of get into this?
I'm just excited that you're getting an opportunity to share your story. It's a big deal. Some people, you don't know how people will respond to this type of thing, but for me, it's just amazing confirmation of faith from my perspective, because everything I have said, I've believed since I was 17 years old, maybe even before that. But seriously, at 17, is confirmed in a story like this. When someone actually goes to the other side and comes back and has, a confirmation of the things that we hold in faith being verified. So it's a powerful story, and it's an important story just for you figuring that one big question out, which is, why am I here, and God, why did you send me back? And we're gonna get into that to various degrees too. So it's an important story. I'm glad you are stepping into the courageous zone here and sharing it, because I think a lot of people need to hear it. They need to be. It's actually ultimately a story that is encouraging, I believe, and so my prayer is that many people are going to be touched by hearing it and getting something important for themselves out of it. So,
I don't know. Again, I'm doing this because I feel called. I feel God is calling me to tell my story, and I don't know if this is the right platform or right medium to do it. I just know I have to, and we'll see. It's nerve wracking. So we will get into it. I'm gonna press play on the video. If you are joining us live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, please comment in the chat or the comments on Facebook or Twitter. Say hello, wish me luck. Anything you want to comment on what you're hearing. I will warn you that I do get emotional. Surprise. But I think there's some times I got a little angry and a little testy, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I watched it back once before about an hour ago. That was a mistake. It was almost harder watching it. So if you see my screen go to black, I may fade out just for a moment to compose myself and come back on. But please feel free to comment in the chat. or on Facebook in the comments. And here we go.
Away we go.
Away we go. Yeah. So some of you know the story. I mean, a lot of people know that I had a heart attack on May 15th of this year, or of last year, rather. And there's a handful of people that know the full story of that experience, which has turned out to be so many things. Quite obviously the most profound experience in my life. The most life-changing experience in my life on many different levels. I'm still processing a lot of it. There's the physical aspect, which I don't have like a lot of confidence in my heart. Some of you know that I just had another heart procedure last week. I had another heart cath after they thought I had another heart attack. Turns out I didn't, but I don't have a lot of confidence in my heart, which causes all kinds of issues, and that alone would be enough to I don't know, be concerning and life-changing. And so yeah, I just started cardiac rehab back up again today because of that. And yeah, there's just not a whole lot of confidence in my heart physically, and that's disconcerting, especially when I have 2 young kids, and so that's one side of it. The other side of it is much more consuming. It's much more, I don't even know the words, and it's going to happen a lot. Well, let me just tell you what happened. It's still very emotional. It's still very raw. I haven't told the story fully in a long time. I've only told to maybe 3 or 4 people. But I truly believe, not knowing why, I truly believe that I'm supposed to tell my story. I truly believe that God is asking me to tell my story. I don't know why. I don't know what purpose it serves. Is it therapeutic for me? Does it help others in some way? I don't know. I'm not seeing that. But I know that I am definitely feeling called to share this story. Because when I step back from the story, it is quite remarkable. And I'm sure at some point I will have a better grip on it, a better perspective, and I can think of it a little more objectively than I can right now. It's still very raw. And because I haven't told the story in a while, and kind of shied away from telling the story, I think it makes today a little bit harder to share this because I haven't gone there in a while. So May 13th, I'll back up a couple days before that. We spent last winter in Chicago unexpectedly. We were planning on being in Arizona, and for several reasons, it made sense for us to stay in Chicago through the winter, knowing we were coming back to northern Michigan in May to camp for the summer. So our camper was down at my parents' house in Indiana. And so Cubby and I went to my parents' house in Indiana, and Juju and Annetta stayed in Chicago. The plan was for Cubby and I to go get the camper, take it up to northern Michigan, get camp set up, and then the following week go back and get Juju and Annetta. They were finishing up some last-minute Chicago stuff, and Annetta had some loose ends to finish up before she came up here for the summer. So that was the plan. Went to my parents' house, had an amazing time with my mom and dad. It was the first time Cubby got to spend time with my mom and dad by himself. And it really was an amazing trip. and Cubby and I just had a blast together and traveling together. It was fun and so forth. So, so there's some hiccups in that story that probably triggered the heart attack, which I won't bore you with. Some car problems, hitch problems, being stuck, having to call AAA. There's all kinds of stuff that caused stress that probably led to what was inevitable at some point. But I think all that contributed. But so we got up to northern Michigan. We got up to the campground, up to Starlight Campground, and got there late in the afternoon, early evening, and I was drained. So we just kind of set the camper up, basically, just so we could sleep. So we just and then we do the rest of it tomorrow. So we went and got something to eat. Came back and went to bed. So it was just Cubby and I in our bed, and I such great memories of our camper and campers that we've had, and spending time with my kids. Especially sleeping together in the camper and just staying up and talking and playing and telling stories and reading, and just my favorite memories of my time spent with my babies. And so that night we went to sleep. Cubby's laying right next to me. We went to sleep, excited we're up in northern Michigan, excited we're camping, because I could not wait to get back up here, and I sleep better in the camper, and it was just, life was, excuse me, life was good. Life was, as good as it could be under all the circumstances we were under. And there was definitely a peace about that. So, excuse me one second, I got a cough. So, go to sleep. Cubby's sleeping, I'm sleeping. I roll over about 4:00 in the morning, somewhere around there, and just felt this huge pressure grab. It's like somebody just grabbed my chest, and I was kind of awake, because I was kind of rolling over, knowing I was rolling over, so it didn't bring me completely out of my sleep. I was kind of rolling over, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And it just took the breath and wind right out of me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." And so my brain wasn't thinking heart attack, even though it knew it. I just didn't allow myself to, maybe, I don't know. So my initial reaction was breathe. I just had to breathe, and it took me 30-40 minutes to calm down. I just slowed my breathing down, and it subsided, so I dozed back off. Sometime later it happened again. Same force, same reaction. And again, subsided after 30-40 minutes. Dozed back off, and it happened a third time. And at that point, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. My mind's racing. My mind is just, what do I do? Some stupid stuff. I didn't want to burden anybody. We just got to the campground. I didn't want to burden Sam, the owner of the campground. We just got there. Stupid. I should have. And I know she would have reacted the way, she should have reacted and so forth. But, my pride got in the way. I didn't want to burden anybody. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what they do with Cubby. So if I go to the hospital, what do they do with Cubby? Do they call family services? I don't want that. So all these things, do I call 911? All these things are running through my head. Eventually at that third time I called Annetta and said, "Hey, don't freak out." I think my first words to her. But I have to head to the hospital. And I asked her to find somebody in Traverse City, one of our friends in Traverse City, that I can drop Cubby off. So I drove from Mansalona to Traverse City, which was obviously not a wise choice, but I could have hurt Cubby, I could have hurt myself, I could have hurt others. So, but I want to go back to when it first started. there's a couple things that just are still so impactful. Sorry, I'm going to be snotty and stuff all day doing this. First of all, I was laying there trying to breathe and looking at my boy next to me. He's sleeping. It was peaceful, and I was so scared that he was going to wake up and not have a daddy. I was thinking about my Juju back in Chicago, that I wasn't going to see her again. I knew I was in trouble, and I knew that I may die. But I was looking at that little boy and imagining from his perspective waking up and his daddy's gone. And that's so heartbreaking to me. But the other part of that was, and part of the reason I knew I was in trouble, I'm going to take these off. This is just not going to be worth it having them on. Part of the reason I knew I was in trouble right away was as soon as it happened, I closed my eyes. I was grabbing my chest, and the only thing I saw was Jesus. And he was just there trying to keep me calm, trying to bring me peace in the moment. And no matter what I did, he was right there, front and center. I could see him, and he was telling me to just, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But I also know, since I was seeing Jesus, I knew I was in trouble. So I knew, not only did the physical pain of it and all that, I knew I was in trouble, but that scared me. And again, coupled with Cubby laying right next to me. But no matter what I did, I saw and felt Jesus with me every second of that. So I get to the hospital. We drop Cubby off at our friend Sarah's, and I don't remember the drive. I remember calling Annetta outside the campground as I'm pulling out, find somebody. She must have called me back. And I don't remember driving. I don't remember dropping Cubby off. I do remember getting to the hospital and kind of stumbling into the hospital. And, I felt better that I made it. I remember feeling relieved that I was there. I felt better that Annetta knew. I felt better that Cubby was safe. I was worried about Juji. Not knowing what's happening to her daddy. But I was worried about Annetta handling it all. But I was at the hospital. Now we can figure out what's next. So I don't remember doing the EKG. I remember walking the hospital. I don't remember anything until I was in the hospital room or the ER room. And I remember the doctors came in and said that the EKG was fine. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe it was something else. Or I was like, all right, I was relieved and hopeful. Weird stuff seems to happen to me. So I was like, all right, well, chalk another one up Jay's mystery things. So I'm like, all right. And then the blood work came back, and the doctors came in, and I remember it wasn't long after that. It was a brief period. And I remember the doctors telling me, no, you had a heart attack. And I first remember just slumping. I remember just feeling completely defeated. I think that's started the shock period, and I still feel like I'm in shock that it happened. Not that, if you look at me from the outside perspective, being overweight, middle-aged, all those things, stress, all those things, it makes sense. But I felt good. My numbers were all good. My blood pressure is good. Cholesterol is good. All that stuff. It never dawned on me, even though there's a family history on my mom's side. It never registered to me that I would have a heart attack or that would be me. I was so shocked and defeated in that moment. And I remember my next thought, almost instantly after was, I gotta call Annetta and tell her, and I gotta call my mom and tell her. And I knew both of them would be, pretty devastated. But the doctors left. I was talking to the nurse. The nurse was in there, and she was saying, listen, now we know what's happened. Normally what's going to happen is they're going to try to get you up to the cath lab in the next week or so, and they'll take a look at things and maybe put a stent in and figure things out. And, so at least we had a plan. I was through the initial shock of it, and at least, we knew it wasn't all the unknown still. So I'm like, all right. So I remember being on the phone with either my mom or Annetta. I believe I was on the phone with Annetta, kind of giving them an update when the doctors came in. I don't know if it was right then when she was saying that or whatever, or I'm not sure. But they said, oh no, we're taking you up now. You're going up now. We're going to prep you right now to go up there. So I was a little alarmed at that, that they were going to do it right now, but they were going to do it and get it out of the way. That's this, heart catheterization is something they do all the time. It's still, surgery, and it's still, you're messing with somebody's heart, and it's still, major, but it's commonplace now. They've been doing it for a long time, and they do it many times a day, all day long. And so I wasn't really scared about that itself. I was nervous just because of the procedure, but I was all right. We're gonna go up. So one of my thoughts was, all right, does Annetta need to get here? And the doctor's like, no, she's in Chicago. I don't want her to race here, and this is something we do all the time. We kind of know what's going to happen. This isn't an emergency situation any longer. So let's just do the cath, and then we can talk. But there's no reason for her to race here. So don't remember going to the cath lab. I remember them saying I was going to go, but that's probably the last thing I remember. So I go to the cath lab. The story is that my heart stopped while I was in the cath lab, and my wife gets a call from the doctor standing right next to me in the cath lab, said, hey, your husband's having another massive heart attack while I'm talking to you. We have to race him upstairs. So now Annetta has to, grab Juji and figure out how to get here quickly. So, there's a story about them getting to the airport and how they got through the airport and so forth. That's, comical. But, they had to get on a plane, and Annetta had to get on a plane not knowing if I was going to be here when she landed. And I think about that all the time. I think about how I would have felt if it was her, and what those 6 hours must have been like. And for my mom, and, I can't imagine being on a plane and just not knowing until you land whether your husband is alive or not. So, obviously I didn't know all that was going on. So the first thing I remember after the heart attack. I don't know if it's the first thing. It's all jumbled. But I remember I'm highly allergic to anesthesia, so I get really violently sick with anesthesia. But I wasn't thinking about that yet. I would be soon enough. But the first thing I remember, and it was one of the worst moments of this whole thing, because I heard Anetta's voice. And I remember waking up realizing that I'm chained down on the bed. My arms and feet are chained down to the bed, and I was intubated. So I went to talk, and just instant panic came over me. And I knew I was in trouble, so my brain calmed me down. I'm sure they shot me and gave me a shot of something too, because I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, just I've never had sensed that type of panic before. It was awful. And again, not really knowing what was happening. I just knew I heard Anetta's voice, and I was trying to get to her, and I was chained down. And they do that so you don't pull everything out, which I would have. So I was intubated for another day or two. I don't really know. I was in and out of it for a long time, for several days, because I was sick, and they had me drugged up, trying to get me not to throw up. Can you imagine throwing up with your chest just cracked open? And so they were doing everything they could not to help me not get sick and so forth. So I was pretty out of it. Didn't really know what was happening. Anetta was there. Didn't know she was there. She said she came in a couple times, and I was just not there. Even though I was awake, I was just not there. Yeah, it was just, there's so many different memories and visions of that time. But I remember it was probably 4 days after the surgery. I had a quadruple bypass. The situation that I mentioned, that I just had the heart cath, it turns out one of the 4 isn't working. That's why I went to the hospital last week and had the procedure. So that was kind of fun to learn. But anyway, so I just didn't know. I didn't know anything was going on. And I remember hearing the nurses and the doctors talk when they came in, and trying to piece things together. I just wasn't there. And as I slowly started becoming a little more alert and just like really confused of where I was, what was happening, and I heard them talking, and I was questioning, like, what happened? Where am I at? It didn't even dawn on me that I wouldn't be in the situation I was in if I just was in the cath lab and that was it. That wasn't the progression of things to happen, but I wasn't there. And so I'm putting things together, and I'm kind of questioning, and I remember like just scratching my chest, and I felt staples. And I panicked. I'm like, whoa, what, huh? Like, I looked, and I had this big 18-inch, incision in my body. And I was just, it's still hard to look at. It's still hard to see it. But I was like, wait, what time? What time out? What happened? I don't understand. I was going to the cath lab, and what? So they told me the story of what happened several times, because I wasn't grasping it, and over the next couple of days and remembering it. And so yeah. So that's kind of the physical story of what happened. And I'm sure Anetta has different, maybe someday Anetta will share her side of this and from her perspective, because I think it's an interesting one that I am still asking her questions about. I asked her something the other day about whether she prayed for me at that time. Did she pray? I don't know, what was she thinking? What was that 6 hours like? Things like that. So that was that. And then, I got out of the hospital and went to the campground, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But, so there was a period, and I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was, I was in the cath lab, my heart stopped. I don't know if it was after that. I have no idea when it was or for how long it was. But there was a time that it was very clear that I wasn't here. I remember the sensation of being pulled from my body, of leaving my body. And it seems to feel like I was in the ICU, but I don't know. I don't know when it was, but I remember distinctly the sensation of leaving my body. And I remember the first part was knowing that I was no longer in my body and no longer on earth, I guess. And not really being scared or anything of that. But I do remember the initial vision and feeling. There was this warmth, this just amazing warm glow. And it's kind of like when you look at the sun with your eyes closed and you see all the oranges and yellows and the bright colors, and it just feels so good and just warms your soul. It kind of felt like that. So there was instantly this just peace and just comfort. And I also knew I wasn't alone there. I couldn't see anybody, but I sensed that I wasn't alone. And I felt like there were angels around me. I remember thinking that at the time. So quickly I realized what was happening, and that I had left my body, and I was I was crossing over to heaven. And I was like, no. I'm not going. I'm not going until I know they're going to be okay. I'm not going. I'm not. I have to know that they're going to be okay. I have to know that Netta's going to be okay. I have to know my baby's going to be okay. I just remember standing there. I'm like, no. This isn't happening. I was okay with it happening. I was. Because there's already this sense of peace and weight lifted. But I could not go. Thinking about my babies. And I don't know how long it lasted, but I was pleading. It's like, no, I can't go without knowing they're going to be okay. And then I was just given this gift of knowing. I saw them. I was given this vision of a scene. It's like a dream sequence when you see your whole life pass you. I saw their whole life. Sorry. I saw them thriving, and I saw them happy. And it was and I was told that, here, I was shown this. Here's your babies. And they were happy. And I was told that I was always going to be able to watch over them. I was always going to be able to see them. And, seeing them happy and thriving, and seeing Annetta happy and thriving, in I saw all of them rebounding from the loss of their daddy or their husband and just doing great. And I wasn't upset about that. I was unbelievably grateful that I was shown that and given that. There's some issues now, particularly with Annetta. I know the kids would not have been better off without a daddy. I certainly know that. But, Annetta she was so radiant and confident and thriving. And now I struggle with that vision because I want that for her, and not knowing if I can not provide it. I know I'm not responsible for that, but at least contributing to healthy relationship and environment for our family that person can't emerge. And so it's difficult. I question, it's going to sound bad, but I question whether she's not better off or would be better off because I was shown it. But that's another show. So I know that I know. I mean, I without a question of a doubt, I know my family's okay and they're going to be fine. And not only are they going to be fine, they're going to be thriving and happy and have long, beautiful lives. And maybe that event of losing me was a turning point for all of them, and their lives took a different trajectory, and that's what made that all possible. I don't know. But it was such a blessing. And I remember feeling so, there's no words to even say it, describe it, but I was like, okay, I'm ready. And at that moment, there was something I'm sure others have tried to describe that have had similar experiences, and there are no earthly words or way to convey the feeling of the weight, the burdens of life that were lifted, and in the essence of who we truly are. And just, there was such, peace isn't even the right word, but it's the only one we have to describe. Just there was such a peace and happiness and joy, genuine joy and happiness and peace that was so overwhelming. It was so, again, there's no words, there's nothing anybody can ever say that could describe that. We're not capable of sharing that. And I just remember being overwhelmed by that, and just comfortable and happy, and like I can't explain it. So we started again, knowing that there were angels with me, beings with me, heading down this path. And as we started moving forward, in the distance, I started seeing shadows. It looked like mountains from a distance. And it was beautiful. I can't even explain. It wasn't mountains, it was shadows. It was kind of like when the sun is behind something, you just see the shadow. You don't see what it really is. And so I was moving forward, and just, again, so weightless and happy. And I can't explain the peace. It was so overwhelming and so amazing. And just so as I started getting closer to those shadows, I started to realize that they weren't mountains. They were shadows and silhouettes of people. So it's just like dark figures, shadows. And as I got closer, some of that started coming into focus. And again, I was still feeling just this amazing love and peace, and it was happiness. It was joy. And as I moved closer, I realized there were people. And then I realized there were people I know. Actually, the first thing I noticed were animals. The first thing I saw were the dogs in my life that had passed away. And I saw several faces that had left us. My Uncle Jim, my Uncle Ken. And there's still people that to this day I still see that, and I remember who it was. I didn't remember seeing my Aunt Jo, and weeks later I realized that she was standing. I know exactly where she was standing. But so I'm coming up to this group of people and just now recognizing people and the looks on their faces and the pure excitement and joy. It's like you had this big welcoming committee that they were so excited to see me. They were so happy to see me. But I remember seeing, and there was a focal point in the middle. It took me a long time to tell this part of the story, particularly to my mom. So I saw several people I recognized, and they were so excited to see me, but in the center was my grandma and grandpa, who I'd never met. And, that's where I was heading. I was heading right to my grandma, and standing when I got all the way up there. Again, she hugged me. And then everybody hugged. It was like this big giant. Everybody that was up there had this just big moment and group hug that was just the most. Again, there's no words to describe what that moment was like, or any of it, but particularly that moment and just the pure love that we don't understand. We don't understand. It's nothing like anything we experience here on Earth. And so the hug ended, and God, I look awful. And my grandma. So when the hug ended, I realized my grandma was there with my grandpa and Jesus. It was the three of them and me standing like right together, and then everybody else was just around. And again, the feeling I was having was just a joy and peace and feeling love that there's just no way to explain it. There's just no way to explain it or have somebody understand. Which is frustrating. It is. It's frustrating that I don't have the words, or there aren't words, because there aren't human words earthly words to describe what that was. So I remember coming off that hug and just being face to face with my mom or my grandma and Jesus, and the looks of love on their faces. I see it like it just happened. Just there's no words. So my grandma then kind of pulls back from me. The hug ends, and she just looks at me and puts her hands on my face and just says, "You are so loved." It's not just that she said it, is the way and the look, but she says, "You are so loved." And up until this point, everything is just, I felt amazing. I felt great. I felt this peace and just something I've always longed for. And being perfectly okay and happy to leave the world behind. And I know that sounds bad. It sounds bad that I have these two babies left behind me. But if you saw what I saw, you'd understand that where I was where I was supposed to be and how things were supposed to be, and my babies were going to be, maybe better off. I don't know. Still struggle with that a little bit, but it was just this overwhelming sense of love and peace, and then it changed. It changed, and again, I knew going through this was going to resurface a lot, and bring back a lot of the struggle. So everything's amazing, and my grandma says that to me, and then she says, the way she said it, and the way her look in her face, and she was so excited, and so she said, "Tell your mom that I love her." Tell your mom that I love her, and I can't wait to see her. Sorry. And I didn't tell my mom that part of the story for a long time because it was so hard. But so she says this, and Mom instantly, I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" Sorry. Like, what do you mean? Tell her you can't wait to see her. You're gonna see her at the same time I am. I was taken back. I'm like, what? I was just confused. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're gonna see her at the same time I am. You can tell her yourself. So I was instantly confused, and like I knew something had changed, something had happened, that all this was happening, and I was shown this amazing gift of seeing my kids happy and healthy, and my wife happy and healthy and thriving, and this showing the peace and love that we only find when we leave this earth. And then all of a sudden it was slipping away. What? I didn't, what? And so I didn't understand. Still don't understand. And so I'm looking around, and they're all still happy and like have that same look of peace and joy, and like I was so loved. Like I was so loved. And I look at Jesus, who's 2 feet away from me. And I must have been pleading with my eyes, and he could see the hurt. And it is hurt. And Jesus simply touched my face. Touched my face and said, "There's still so much for you to do." Again, I see the look and the love and on all their faces, and the warmth and the peace, and he just touches my face. Jesus touches my face and looks at me and says, "There's still so much for you to do." So it all started slipping away. And I sensed that I was returning. Or what I feel and still say is I was being sent back. Which was, and still is, devastating. I don't understand. I don't understand why I was shown all that. Why show me that? Why have me experience that peace and that love and that joy? Just to send me back. I'd rather not experienced it. And I don't want this to sound ungrateful by any means. I know that it was a blessing and a gift, and I'm working on it. I am. And I so thankful that I get to see my babies, and I hug them and kiss them and see them grow up, and every day I look at them and think, and you can't understand. It's not that I didn't want to be here, that I don't want to be here. I have no thoughts of hurting myself or anything like that. It's nothing about that. And there's going to be people that just don't understand why for a long time after. Again, it's not that I didn't want to be here. Those aren't the right words. It's not that I wasn't grateful or am grateful. And if it sounds like it, and it's too bad. You can't understand, and I'm sorry. But I just don't understand why I was sent back, and I'm working on it. Praying on it. I am, as we've talked about already on the show and so forth, my relationship with God has changed, obviously. Especially 2 Sundays ago or whatever that was now, that, I felt like I stepped across the line and stepped into who I am in Christ. And maybe some of me needing to know is not as strong. It leaves me with still a lot of questions and again, not knowing who I am, not knowing what's expected. And again, I don't know. I don't know. And I do know that it will become clear to me. I have full faith, and this isn't just me saying this or manifesting anything. It's like I fully believe that the other side of this for me is joy on earth, finding peace on earth, to greatness, to stepping into who God sees me, how God sees me. Everything I've ever dreamed of and wanted is on the other side of this. And I know that. I have no doubt about that. So there's not a fear of that. I feel that God is working. I can feel it. I can feel him working on me. And he's telling me to be patient. That song, Wait on You from Elevation Church, goes through my head right now in moments like this. Cause I'm waiting. I'm being patient for him to get everything ready for me, to get me ready for me, to lift the fear of who I am in him, because that's always scared me. And it scared me because, it's going to sound stupid, but I mean, it's like I am afraid to fail. I'm afraid to not live up to who I am. Him, and I know that's not how God works. I understand that. But I struggle with still being set back, and and there has to be some reason I was sent back, and I'm not saying that that's some huge thing that I'm going to change the world or it's going to change anything. Maybe it affects me and my family and my people I love and how I live my life, and has some small change. But I ultimately have been struggling with, and not as much now because I've learned to accept that I'm here. I mean, I know it sounds bad, that I'm stuck here, and I still struggle with that. I still struggle that I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I was set back. I think I'll understand at some point, and I'm gonna continue to trust God and what he's doing in my life, and what the opportunities he's given me and the doors he's opening for me. I'm gonna step through them bravely, even when I don't want to. But ultimately, I've seen the other side, and like all of it, it is beautiful as it is at times. What for? I don't understand it, and I guess I think I want to talk to Doug about that. I want to get his reaction, obviously, and this particularly, like, we're here for a short period of time. I know it doesn't seem like that for us, but Cubby asked the question last week about immortality, and that we do have everlasting life. And so this is a really brief time, but I don't understand why. I don't understand what the whole purpose of it is. Why have us here? Why do this? Sometimes I feel like it's an experiment. I don't get it. So there's still a lot of questions, and why show me that? Why show me that? Why have me experience that? Send me back. I don't know, but there are moments that I can step back now a little bit and think about what happened, and think about those moments with Jesus and him touching my face, and how amazing that is. And I don't care if anybody believes me or doesn't believe me, to be honest with you. I don't care if people think I'm crazy and I just hallucinated the whole thing, or I was on drugs or in the hospital or whatever. You can say or think anything you want about that. I don't really care. I know what happened. I know that I was with Jesus and he touched my face, and I know I saw my grandma and all those people. And it's not just how, the human mind works to accept and make sense of things. You can think what you want about that. You didn't experience it. And if you experienced, I guarantee you'd feel the same way. But yeah, it's a struggle. And I still have a lot of questions. I still have moments of really questioning and never doubting God. There's times that I'm angry. There's certainly times that I have been angry. Sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be, and I'm angry, but I never am really angry at God. I trust God to have this since the moment it happened, even though I'm mad and don't understand and confused, and I know and feel that he's working in my life, and at some point I'll figure it out, or it'll become apparent or whatever. I don't know. I guess, but there's moments where I just don't get it. I don't understand why we're here. Why? I mean, but there's so much of this that just sticks out in my head of those first moments when having Cubby by my side. I think about that often, of him waking up and just he wakes up and trying to wake me up. I picture him trying to like shake me, having me wake up, and I don't. It's just so heartbreaking seeing that little boy do that. And I know he didn't go through it, and I'm thankful he didn't go through it. And I'm so thankful that I'm here with him and Juji, and I'm so thankful that I get to walk Juju down the aisle, and if she chooses to get married, and I get to see them grow up and become who God intends them to be. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's my job and my role. I guess it is with every parent, but I've always felt, going back to my stories from last week and my relationship with God and my journey with God, I've always felt that he had something bigger for me. He had something, I don't know. I always felt, this is going to sound weird and conceited, but I've always felt like he had greatness. There was greatness in me that I couldn't realize until I stepped into who I am in him. And again, that greatness could be on a small scale within my own family and my own community or whatever. I have no illusions that it's going to be this grand thing, like everybody's going to know my name or things like that. I don't care about any of that anymore. Maybe I did at one point, but I don't. But I've always felt that he wants something more for me, and I wasn't able to be that more until I learned the things I'm learning now and go through what I'm going now, and trusting him and learning how to trust him, and I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a more of a peace for me now, but I'm sorry. As I'm looking at the time, this is 58 minutes long. I didn't think it was going to be that long, but anyway, that's my story. And maybe it'll get easier to tell, and maybe I tell it in a different way, and maybe there's a different purpose to tell the story. Maybe it connects with somebody. Maybe somebody can relate to it. Others are going to dismiss it. Other people are going to think I'm crazy. I don't know. I know that I was called to tell this story, and I went through this for a reason, for something. I don't know what it is yet, but God asked me to tell my story, and I'll continue to tell it. Again, maybe I find better ways and better platforms, or understand what that's for, but that's kind of where I am now. And I'm not broken. I don't feel broken anymore like I did, and I don't feel as confused. And I know what's on the other side of this. If I didn't know what was on the other side of this, not other side of this life, but the other side of this process and this season for me, if I didn't know that, then I'd be in a whole different scenario for me. But I do. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that what God's doing in my life, I have no doubt where that leads me. I just have to accept it, and I have to embrace it and fully embrace it in who I am in him. And I understand that it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change the things I do or my relationships with people and things like that. I still do things. I still swear. I still have a beer. So anyways, thank you for allowing me to share this with you. And listening. I don't know if anybody's still on, or is on, but it was important for me to share this, and I appreciate the opportunity, And I'd love to hear from anybody and wants to know more or has questions or anything. You can put them in the chat on the show tonight, or email me or PM me on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to say thank you for sharing it. I'm glad you shared it, or that I was being brave. Hopefully I don't get any haters saying stuff, but it's the world we live in, I guess. But I'm going to stop and talk to Doug and have him respond and reflect on this and kind of help me through this, because he has. And I'm so thankful. So thankful for him. So thankful for being here. So thankful for my babies. I'm so thankful for Annetta, who had to deal with all this and step into roles that she wasn't comfortable in. And I hope that I can reach that other side of this season and help provide the atmosphere and environment and relationships that allows her to thrive like I saw her thriving. Because if I can't, that would break me. If I don't see the same things I saw in my children that I was shown and them being happy and thriving, if I can't achieve that here on earth, then it really won't make sense to me. So, thank you. So, first of all, we're getting a lot of background from your side. Like, is there a fan or?
It's probably the pilot on my heater, which is just over that way.
Okay. Yeah. No. Go ahead. I can't.
Well, on behalf of everybody that's going to see this and respond to it, thank you again for taking the courage and the vulnerability to put yourself out there. But it's an amazing story, and it's, again, as we said at the top of the show, it's an important story, and it's not finished, but you're being called by God to share this, and I think for a lot of different reasons, and we're going to hear a lot of different testimonies on the backside of this of people who were encouraged and blessed and built up and assured. It's something that people need to know. There is an assurance, the old hymn that I grew up with, Blessed Assurance. When you experience something like this, I know God is real because of the relationship that I have with him. I've heard his voice. I've had many interactions. My wife has been healed of cancer, so I've seen demonstratively God do stuff. But this takes it to a whole nother level of, seeing Jesus face to face, of going to the afterlife and meeting family members that you hadn't even met before. I mean, it's powerful. I'll just use the one example of, you mentioned there aren't earthly words to describe. And that's true because you weren't on earth. You were in heaven. You were in the spiritual realm, and it's a whole different place. But you were talking about peace, and you said that really doesn't describe it. Well, I'll say that the Hebrew word for peace probably comes closer as an actual definition or description, because the word shalom, which is used in, as we take the English word peace and we kind of try to say that's what shalom means. But actually, shalom means nothing missing, nothing broken. And that's what you experienced. You weren't in a broken world that's missing lots of things, in our life in it and our interactions with the world. But in heaven, where we were, destined to be, as we talked about last week when Cubby asked that question, right? That we are eternal spiritual beings in a temporary physical existence. Once we walk over and cross over, if you will, into the spiritual realm, into heaven, we're getting everything that's missing here. And so it really, I don't, it can seem like to you, you're like, why did they show me that? Or why did I experience that? It was really just a supernatural consequence, if you will, of you existing there for a short period of time before you did come back. And you experienced it in its fullness, which is, again, makes this world pale in comparison from an experiential standpoint. So it wasn't like, hey, look how awesome this is. Oh, sorry, you can't have that. It really was, this is what you were created for. This is the existence that I purpose for you. So we live in what my spiritual dad, Rick Sizemore, calls, there's this age and then there's an age to come. And we have a purpose in this age. God has created us for things that he wants to do with us, through us, in this age, but there's also the age to come. And so we have to balance that out, that we are here for a season. The Bible actually even compares it to a vapor or a blade of grass, wilting in the sun. On the scale of eternity, it is a short time. But there is purpose here. God is put us here to have influence, to touch people's lives, to love and be loved, not fully, that comes later. But there is things that God wants to accomplish here with us, and we have to tap into that. So that's the process that you are currently figuring out, which is, specifically, I know for me, because I decided I wanted to live for Jesus at a very young age, a relatively young age, my teenage years, I've had time to figure lots of things out in relationship to what God has called me to. I mean, there was a time where, kind of touching on the identity thing a little bit here, where I was like, oh, this is who I am and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from underneath you and you're no longer that person anymore, or at least your perception of who you thought you were. And then you move on to the next identity and it's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And all of a sudden that's gone. And since then I've really started to figure out, okay, I don't want to put my trust or my energy into a temporary identity. I want to find out who I am, who really God has made me to be, so that I can focus in on that and accomplish the things that he wants to do through that identity. And so that's the process that you find yourself in right now. And it is bittersweet. I mean, yes, you're grateful that you're here and you get to actually be a part of your family's life, and you are going to be a big part of their, happiness and success and the things that they are going to flourish in, because you're going to be happy and successful, and you're going to flourish in the things that God has for you to do. But, again, it's, we weren't created solely for this moment, for being here on earth. And that's why there's that tug of war of, we try to find pleasure, we try to find purpose, we try to find fulfillment. But the reality is it's only fully found in God, in Christ, and living out the things that he has planned from, as the Bible says, the foundations of the world. He knew who we were. He had plans and purposes for us. And we're here to partner with him to get the downloads that we need from heaven to figure out, okay, how am I to live my life in such a way that it brings God glory, and it has the most positive, loving, eternal impact possible on everybody that's in my sphere of influence.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest. And I'm really trying to get this face off me, because it's like I'm scowling and I'm like, I can't. It's like a resting bitch face or something.
That's where you're at, man. That's where you're at.
Like I said earlier, going through this and telling the story tonight was made me realize, as much work as I've done and kind of where I'm at, um, I still got a ways to go. I still don't understand. I don't know. I still, that feeling of being there, it's never left me, and being confused to why I would show that. And again, I'm just gonna have faith that it'll be revealed. And I mentioned to you this before too, that I feel like I'm being protected by myself still.
Hmm.
Um, is God's preparing what's next for me, preparing me what's next for me, and
Hmm.
I'm not quite there. I'm getting closer, and I feel like I'm getting closer. But it's still like it's still part of me, and it's gonna sound bad. I feel like I don't know. I don't know. I can't really explain it. It's just I struggle with the identity piece, and I feel like that's the piece that I think has always been there with me, and that's always been that fear that I talked about last week
Hmm.
of either letting God down and stepping over that line and not being who I'm supposed to be, or not being who I am in Him, and letting Him down and disappointing Him. And again, I know that that's not how God works. That's my
Hmm.
own human mind, you know, doing that. And but I feel like I've always known, I've always had this calling or pull that He's had on me. He just, again, like I said, He would never let me go. And in that, it's that same feeling I've had my entire life, and now I feel that same thing, but now I feel like it's emerging.
Hmm.
And I don't, again, I don't know. I don't think I'm ever gonna have an answer to why I was sent back. Why. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I would rather not have seen what I saw. You know,
Hmm.
it makes being here. And again, I don't want this to sound like I'm suicidal or I hurt myself. That's not it at all.
Yeah.
Um, and if you saw what I saw and you felt what I felt, you would understand. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still, I guess, I'm a little taken back about how much it still is a struggle for me. As much as the work I'm doing and really paying attention to how God's working in my life, and being open to that and having my heart open to that, um, in a way that I've never done before, and yet there's still trauma, I guess, and hurt uh, from all this, and I guess I didn't necessarily realize it was all still so close to me, that there's still some hurdles ahead for me, and getting there. And that's, again, I feel like that identity piece is, like a couple weeks ago when I had that experience, and I felt like I didn't even know that I moved forward and crossed the line, if that's the right choice of words, into accepting at least the next phase of this, of
Hmm.
who I am in Him. It's been an amazing thing. I still feel like there's more, more of
Hmm.
me to emerge.
Yeah.
Um, and I had brought up the quote of your book about we must understand, and how, I don't know, understand and operate in our own true
Hmm.
identity before we can be fully empowered in our God-given purpose. I think that's
Yes.
close to what you were saying. And I again, that resonated with me because that's what I feel. I feel like I feel like that's what God's been waiting for me for this entire time. He's waiting
Hmm.
for me to operate in that, and be that person before He can show me everything that's waiting for me. So that it's been so powerful this week, and like, again, I see that all through my entire life, that until I like the word operate, live out my
Hmm.
life in that way, is, am I going to be ready for what's next for me? And I don't know.
I think part of that comes as a progressive, continuing revelation of, who um, God has made us to be, and us figuring that out. Part of us figuring that out is surrendering to the fact that we can't actually even do it on our own, no matter how,
Yeah.
fully realized we are, and the gifts that are inside of us, and the talents that are inside of us, and the ideas, and the creative things that God has, put on the inside of us. Um, we're still dependent on Him. Um, he's still the source. So, us coming into that, and I'll use this as an example. There are many examples, but as a primary example is God is the Father, and we are His sons, and of course He has daughters as well. But we depend on Him like a young child would have to depend on their parent. And you know, you don't send your 5-year-old kid in and say, "Here are the keys. Go back the car down in the driveway." They're not ready for that.
Yeah.
And we kind of live in this perpetual spiritual state of not being fully competent, not being fully ready for what God wants us to do. But He calls us to it, knowing that, and hoping that we have that dependence on Him to do the work that He needs to do in us, to do the work that He needs to do through us to accomplish what His purpose is for us. And so part of that is getting us to that place of understanding, I need my Heavenly Father in order to fulfill, His design, and what He's purposed for me to do. And so that's part of that identity, is stepping into that role as a son, the way Jesus was a son. And He said in John 5:19, He didn't do anything except for what He saw His Father doing. John 5:30, He didn't speak anything except for what He heard His Father speaking. So He had that ultimate relationship, father to son, where He was fully surrendered to His Father's will. He said, "My will, or my food, is to do the will of Him who sent me." And so He was fully surrendered to that. And God wants us to get to that place where we're fully surrendered. Now, not everybody's called to ministry. Not everybody's called to do the things, like pastorally or whatever that I have done in full-time ministry. But we all have ministry that He's called us to, whether it's our family, our friends, our work, our neighborhoods, a sphere of influence of people that He wants us to touch, that they would experience the love and the peace and the joy that you experienced in heaven here. It's not as full. It's microscopic version of it, if you will. But there are people that need to know that there is life afterwards. There is a place that they can experience fullness, both in the purpose side of what God has put them on this earth and this age for, and on the other side of spending eternity in that place of full joy, full peace, full love.
Yeah. I think Annetta brings this up often. My mom as well, about sharing this. And I didn't share the story about seeing her parents, my mom's parents, because they died when I was younger before that, and so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was so afraid to tell her, and and she said that it gave her a peace. And I'd forgotten the story that she had told me about her mom's passing when she was, I believe, in the hospital, and uh, her mom was looking up, uh, at what a light or something, and the look in her face was just so glorious,
Mm-hmm.
and believing that her father had come to get her. And and I think for Annetta too, it's given her a lot of peace that whatever happens in this world, we know what's next. So you know,
Yeah.
that's all good. And
Mm-hmm.
and for me, it's still I'm trying not to feel like I'm stuck here.
Mm.
That resurfaced over the last day or two. Because I don't want to feel like I can't really explain it. I feel like I'm stuck, and it's like I'd said this to you early on,
Mm.
that I feel kind of stuck here. And again, I've evolved from that into, again, stepping into what I feel God has called me to do and so forth. But I still feel stuck, and I feel like there hasn't been a lot of joy, even though I have these babies and Anetta and um, these shows. The show, my sports bias show, have given me some joy, and kind of brought out my um, the nature, my essence of who I really am, that I think I um, pushed aside for various reasons. Um, so part of both these shows is kind of accepting who I am, that I've always kind of pushed aside because I wanted to be more, or I wanted to be all things, or I wanted to do so many different things, instead of just being who I am. And these
Mm-hmm.
shows have allowed me to move closer to that and do that. Um, but feeling stuck, and it's like, okay, having these conversations with myself is, what's the alternative? Is it really just a matter of, well, you might as well be happy and make the most of it because you're here?
Mm.
Like those thoughts go through my head. It's like it can't be that. It can't. But that's what it feels like, because I've seen, that for me, the purpose, all our existence, our purpose here on Earth, our existence on Earth, to me is lost on me right now. And again, I'm trusting God to work through me through that and help me understand. But yeah,
Well, and I think you're not alone in that. It's interesting that I just am now cluing into this, but the Apostle Paul actually goes through this entire, monologue with himself in relationship to, I don't want to be here. I want to be in heaven. I don't, and he says, but it's better for you, all the people that he was ministering to, that I'm here, and I get that, and I think that's the resolve that you will come
I
into.
hope so. I hope I
Yeah,
get to feel that, because right now, again, it's not that I
yeah,
don't want to be here. It's not that I don't want people to get that impression. But
right,
I hope I come to that realization, and
yeah,
feeling and acceptance. I feel like I will. I feel like I'm going to. It's just, I'm proud of myself for really listening. And I'm sorry, I have such a massive headache from crying all day. My head's just pounding. I feel like I've been listening, and I have such a nature of trying to manufacture things, and whatever it may be, and that always ultimately gets me in trouble or leads me to things that don't make me happy, or whatever it may be. And I
hmm
feel, given everything that's happened, I've really been open and listening to God and talking with God, and leading where He's, and again, He's told me to be patient. He's told me to heal, in many more ways than just my heart. Um, and so I feel like I'm doing that. I'm proud of myself, for doing the work that it takes to kind of get me to the next thing. Again, there is part of me that says, okay, well, what's the alternative? I don't really have a choice. I can either be here. Um, uh, Thanks, Dan. I want to thanks, Dan. Um,
hmm
I want to thank my friends Tara and Jason for the comments. True people that I, cherish and love and mean the world to me. So seeing their comments, just you know but um, yeah, I don't know. Again, I guess again I've said this a whole bunch of times, so I'm gonna go in circles. But I'm disappointed right now because I thought maybe I was a little farther along, and maybe I am. Maybe it's just the moment, and tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll feel this weight lifted that I shared the story, and I don't think, I think this is just the beginning of sharing the story, and hopefully I get to a point where I can share the story and I'm not like this, every time I tell it. I can't do that. I'm so exhausted. I'm so drained. I already don't have much energy and
We
stamina.
may have to do this at 8 o'clock in the morning your time
Oh yeah,
instead of
this is
8 o'clock at
also.
night.
Yeah, Doug knows me that this is not. This is my worst time of day. 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. is my peak. So doing this later in the day, especially when I've been through all this, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
tough.
we wanted to do it live, but
Yeah,
um, well, again, I think we've talked this out, Doug, and
yeah,
I talked to Doug about this, and he knew this going into us developing the show, and that this was something that I feel like I had to do, and Doug's been an integral part of me getting through this phase, and will continue to be. So we kind of started out the show and with all this, and this is not necessarily the intent of the show. Um, and so I hope you don't think if you're tuning in, it's going to be like this every week. No, because we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to have a lot of laughter. And we were
yeah.
talking about, Monica was on earlier talking about food. She made a quiche earlier and stuff. So we're
Mm,
going to talk about food and, sharing those memories and music and creating, more memories through the show.
yeah.
And so I apologize to Doug, and I know he understands that and he's going to disagree with this, but I feel one of my obligations with this show, obligation is not the right word. After I read Doug's book, I wanted the world to see it. I wanted the world to experience it. I wanted church leaders to hear his word and light a fire under the Christian ministry, the Christian
Mm,
leadership, and that is a goal of mine through this show, and it might not be just talking about the book. It just might be everything else. But um, you know, I'm thankful that he's been patient with me, that it's been so much about me so far. So
no, it's an important. It really does help people to understand our relationship. I think a little bit
yeah,
better. And that'll progress obviously as we talk about life. Get back to that, which was just a phenomenal time when we were neighbors. I mean, just you know,
I
we
miss
need
it
to
so much.
we need to. I know we need to figure that out.
I
Whether we're
know.
coming to Arizona, or you're coming back to California, but
We only left
um,
because you were gone. You already went to Virginia. And I was
I
like,
know,
I
I
might as well
know.
just leave
I'm,
too.
I need to repent.
It's all your fault.
It is, it
No, I
is.
agree. I
But
think I think
yeah,
sharing what we've shared so far, sharing your
yeah,
story last week,
yeah,
and going through this today, again, will help us. Other people help understand our relationship. And I think everything we do here on out for the people who have seen this or will go back and eventually watch these episodes once
yeah,
they follow the show will a lot of other things will make sense. It'll give everything we do a little more context, and I think people will appreciate what we're doing a little bit more, where we're coming from a little bit more
yeah.
once they see this. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be good, and it was good for you to get through it and get this out to the world.
yeah,
And like I said, I'm very confident that it's going to have a very profound impact on several people. That it's going to be life changing for them.
yeah. I'm not there yet. Again, I don't know why. I felt like I had to tell the story, and hopefully I
Yeah,
get there. And I do feel like God's telling me to continue to tell my story. Again, it
yeah,
can't be like this. I got to find a better way. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna do something different tomorrow too. We're gonna try it.
yes,
We're gonna jump onto Twitter Spaces tomorrow. If you're not familiar with Twitter Spaces, it's basically Clubhouse. If you're on Clubhouse or were in Clubhouse before everybody left Clubhouse, so we're gonna jump on Twitter tomorrow at noon Pacific, 2 o'clock. Is it 3 o'clock here? 3 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, three
yeah.
o'clock Eastern. We're gonna jump on Twitter Spaces again at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern, and talk about this a little bit further. So if you want, to talk to us, ask questions about us, hear more about our stories, our journeys, kind of more some of the biblical uh, references tonight, and how Doug kind of explained this to us, and talk about my experience, and I'm sure if we attract some other people who had other similar experiences and so forth, and kind of continue the conversation. If nobody shows up, I get to hang out with Doug a little bit longer. So,
That's right.
so we
Win
will.
win.
Go ahead.
I just said win-win.
Yeah, win-win. So we will. If it's just Doug and I, great. And if it's not, it'll be great too. So I will post the link on our Facebook page and Twitter, so you guys have it, and post it on my personal page too. So if you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. Even if you send us personal message to kind of let us know what you're thinking of the show so far, feedback.
Yes, would love to hear it.
So under 2 hours, Doug.
We
Under
did
2
it.
hours.
We'll chop it down eventually.
Yeah, no, I think we'll settle into an hour or so.
Yeah,
We knew. Hey, I wasn't as long as we were last week, though.
that's right. We're making progress.
That's only because I recorded it. Because if we didn't record it, it would have been bad.
Man, you did great. You did great. Good job.
Thank you. Any parting shots before we say goodnight?
I just want everybody to know I'm working on my Spotify playlist because Jay's is incredible. I'm gonna have to spend a couple more days, maybe weeks, figuring out if I can top his. He said it's not possible, but I'm gonna do my best.
I did put a link to that playlist in the description on Facebook and YouTube again, and I had mentioned "Wait on You." There's a link specifically to that song as well.
So good.
Yeah, Doug. I'm looking forward to hearing the playlist. You're gonna have some old school like Petra and stuff like that on there.
Oh, absolutely. Striper, Petra. I'm going old school.
Well, if Dan, I think Dan Shaker's still there. I think he was a big Striper fan.
All right.
One of those, Anyway.
Right. Quick shout out. Olympics start this weekend.
Yes.
Go USA.
Yes.
Support your Olympic favorites. It's going to be interesting, especially hockey. Russians a favorite this year again because we're sending the amateurs. So
yeah,
maybe 1984 all over again. That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be great? I'll never. I was taking I don't have my glasses on. I was about to take my glasses off. I was like, I took them off a long time ago. I'll never forget that. We're the same age. Well, I guess I'm a little bit older. Yeah, I'll never forget that. One of my older brothers, suite mates in college at Bowling Green, was on the team, and
oh wow,
it was just magical. Again, we grew up when we remember all the bomb things we went through, drills we went through in school every day, and all that stuff. It was a weird, scary time,
Yes,
and
but the 80s were still the best. Yeah, but the 80s were still the best era of everything ever.
Fashion, music, and all.
Everything.
All right, bud. I love you.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you so much for helping me through this and help me understand and make sense of my world.
Absolutely. Anytime. My privilege and pleasure. Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We are going to sign off. We'll see you next Wednesday. Make sure you look on our Facebook page for that Twitter Spaces thing tomorrow. See, I can't do that because I have metal rods in my thumbs. So mine looks like a pepper or something. I have these metal rods. My thumbs don't bend here. So can I go like this? That kind of looks like it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that'll work.
Whatever. Good night, everybody.
All right.